I was about to propose to my girlfriend when I overheard her tell her parents she was looking for someone better, and I was just a temporary wallet, so I disappeared without a trace. I'm 26 years old, and up until recently, I thought I was living what most people would call the dream life. I work as a project manager at a consulting firm where I make decent money that allows me to afford nice things. From the outside looking in, my life probably appeared pretty solid and well put together. For the past 2.5 years, I'd been dating this girl named Maya, and things between us seemed rock solid. We had developed our own comfortable routines and shared a decent 2-bedroom apartment in Miami, splitting all the expenses right down the middle like proper adults. She even knew my Netflix password. You know, real relationship milestone stuff that signals you're in it for the long haul. What Maya didn't know was that I'd been secretly saving up for an engagement ring for months. I'd been checking out jewelry stores during my lunch breaks like some kind of covert operations mission, carefully researching different styles and trying to figure out her ring size without being obvious about it. I had this whole elaborate proposal plan mapped out in my head, complete with timing and location details. That particular Friday started out completely normal, just like any other day. Maya texted me while I was at the gym, asking if I could grab groceries on my way back home. She mentioned she was dealing with some kind of work crisis and couldn't get away from the office. This was no big deal at all. I'd probably done this exact same grocery run about 60 times before during our relationship. I hit up Whole Foods to pick up all her specific requests from the detailed list she'd sent me. This included the fancy oat milk she was completely obsessed with, those weird-tasting protein bars that apparently helped her metabolism, even though they tasted like cardboard to me, and everything else she'd carefully itemized. Our apartment was a second-floor walk-up located in a decent part of town where the rent was reasonable by Miami standards. We'd been splitting the $400 monthly rent 50-50 for the past year and a half, with both our names on the lease as joint responsibility holders. The whole adult relationship thing that made everything feel official and serious. I was hauling these overstuffed paper bags up the stairs, seriously questioning why grocery stores make their bags so incredibly flimsy, when I heard voices coming from inside our apartment. The front door was cracked open maybe 3 inches, which wasn't unusual since Maya sometimes left it open when she was expecting me to arrive home soon. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop or anything suspicious. I was just pausing for a moment to readjust my grip on the grocery bags before walking inside. That's when I clearly heard her mother Linda's voice, sharp and demanding as always, cutting through the air with a question that made my heart skip a beat. "So why hasn't he proposed yet?" Linda's voice cut through the apartment with her typical demanding tone. "You two have been together forever. Robert keeps asking me the same thing." My heart actually did that thing where it literally skips a beat, and for a split second, I found myself smiling. I was thinking the exact same thing, honestly. Not why I hadn't proposed, but how I was going to pull off the perfect proposal. I'd been researching ring styles obsessively, trying to figure out her exact ring size through sneaky methods, planning the whole elaborate experience down to the smallest details. For just a moment, I thought maybe this conversation would give me some valuable intel about what she was hoping for or expecting. Maybe I'd overhear some hints about her dream proposal scenario that I could incorporate into my carefully crafted plan. Then Maya answered Linda's question, and it felt like someone had dumped a bucket of ice water directly over my head. "I'm not ready to close the doors yet," she said without any hesitation, without a nervous laugh, without any indication that she was joking around. Her voice was completely matter-of-fact, like she was discussing what to order for dinner or which Netflix show to watch next. What if someone better comes along? The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever, though it was probably only a few seconds of dead air. I stood there in the hallway, holding grocery bags that suddenly felt incredibly heavy, trying to process what I'd just heard my girlfriend of 2.5 years say about our relationship. Then Linda's response hit me like a freight truck carrying a load of brutal reality. "Smart girl, never settle, honey," she said with genuine enthusiasm and approval in her voice. "You're beautiful, you're young, you have options. Don't let him pressure you into anything you're not ready for." Just like that, they moved on to talking about some Netflix show they'd both been watching, as if they hadn't just completely nuked our entire relationship with a few casual sentences. There was no pushback from Linda about potentially leading me on, no concern about wasting 2.5 years of my life, no suggestion that maybe Maya should consider my feelings in this equation. Just pure, enthusiastic encouragement to keep me around as a backup plan while she continued shopping for an upgrade. I stood there in that hallway, holding $40 worth of groceries that I just purchased for someone who apparently considered me a placeholder until her real life could begin. This wasn't some hypothetical conversation about celebrities or abstract relationship philosophy. This was her mother asking a direct, pointed question about marriage, and my girlfriend essentially confirming that I was nothing more than a temporary solution until something better walked into her life. 2.5 years of my life, and I was basically their family's consolation prize. The safe option they could fall back on if Maya's search for someone better didn't pan out according to plan. I didn't storm in screaming like some kind of dramatic movie scene. I didn't drop the grocery bags and cause a massive confrontation that would wake up the entire building. Instead, I took a deep breath, composed myself, and walked in quietly like absolutely nothing had happened. Maya was sprawled out on the couch, scrolling through Instagram, completely absorbed in whatever mindless content was filling her feed. Linda was puttering around the kitchen, humming some classic song from the 80s, acting like she owned the place and had every right to be rearranging our spice rack. "Hey babe," Maya said without even bothering to look up from her phone screen. "Did you get the quinoa?" "Yeah, everything's on the list," I replied, setting the bags on the counter with what I hoped was my normal level of casual energy. I spent the next 15 minutes making small talk with Linda, who launched into an elaborate story about some drama unfolding at her book club. Apparently, the other women were jealous of something or other. I honestly wasn't paying close attention to the details since my mind was racing with what I'd just overheard. I asked about her work, nodded at all the right moments, and played the role of the good, attentive boyfriend one last time. Linda asked about my job, and I gave her the standard updates about projects and deadlines. She seemed pleased with my responses, probably thinking about how stable and reliable I was. Perfect backup material for her daughter's grand life plan. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was performing this whole charade while internally processing the fact that they both saw me as essentially a human safety net. After what felt like the longest 15 minutes of my life, I told them I had to run some errands and needed to head back out for a while. I kissed Maya on the forehead like I always did, just another piece of our established routine. But this time, it felt completely different. This time, I knew it was going to be the last time. But instead of running actual errands, I drove straight to our property management office. It was Friday afternoon, but thankfully, they maintained weekend hours specifically for situations they classified as emergencies. This definitely qualified as an emergency in my book. "I need to remove my name from a lease," I told the woman sitting at the front desk, trying to keep my voice steady and professional. She pulled up our file on her computer, scanning through the standard joint lease information where both parties were listed as equally responsible. But here's the thing about most rental agreements that a lot of people don't realize. Either party can actually terminate their portion with 30 days notice, as long as the other party agrees to assume full financial responsibility for the remainder of the lease term. All I needed to make this happen was Maya's signature on the appropriate paperwork. I called Maya from the parking lot of the property management office, keeping my voice as casual and normal as possible. "Hey, quick question," I said, as if this was just another mundane administrative task. "I'm thinking about making some changes to our lease paperwork. Can you come down to the office real quick? Just some boring admin stuff that needs both of us here." She showed up 25 minutes later, looking slightly annoyed but not particularly suspicious. Why would she be? We'd been together for 2.5 years, shared everything from Netflix passwords to grocery lists, and trusted each other completely. Well, at least one of us had been operating under that assumption. I had already printed out all the necessary forms and carefully highlighted exactly where she needed to sign, making the whole process look as routine and straightforward as possible. I presented it to her like we were simply updating our emergency contacts or adding some kind of renter's insurance information to our file. "What's this actually for?" she asked, scanning the document with mild curiosity but no real concern. "Just cleaning up the paperwork, making sure everything's current and up to date," I explained smoothly. "You know how these property management companies are about having all their documentation properly organized." She signed without reading the document properly or asking any follow-up questions. And honestly, why would she? We'd been living together for over a year, making joint decisions about everything from furniture purchases to vacation plans. She had absolutely no reason to suspect that I was systematically removing myself from our shared life based on a conversation I'd overheard just hours earlier. The property manager processed the paperwork immediately with efficient professionalism. As of that exact moment, Maya became solely responsible for the full 1,400 baht monthly rent payment. I was officially free and clear of any legal or financial obligation to the apartment we'd been calling home. Phase 2 of my plan started first thing Monday morning. Maya had already left for work, following her usual routine of getting to the office early for their weekly team meetings. The timing was absolutely perfect for what I needed to accomplish. I called in a personal day at my job, which gave me several uninterrupted hours to systematically remove everything I had personally paid for from our apartment. This included the 55-inch television I'd purchased last year, my entire gaming setup with the PlayStation and all the accessories, the nice couch we'd picked out together, but that I'd ultimately put on my credit card, the coffee maker we used every morning, the air fryer that had become essential to our dinner routine, and about half of all the kitchen appliances and cookware. Around noon, while I was in the middle of carefully packing my belongings into boxes, I called my friend Tyler. "Hey man, I need to crash at your place for a while," I said, taking a break from wrapping up my gaming controllers. "It's a long story, but I'm bringing food as a peace offering." "Let me guess," Tyler replied without missing a beat. Maya finally showed her true colors? "Tyler, not now, I'm bringing Chinese takeout," I said, not quite ready to get into the full explanation over the phone. "That's going to be interesting," he said, and I could hear the amusement in his voice. This should be fun to watch unfold. Tyler showed up 45 minutes later with his pickup truck and a bag of trail mix, looking like he was ready for some kind of action-packed adventure. The guy didn't even ask for detailed explanations about what was happening. He just started hauling my stuff down the stairs like we were running some kind of precisely coordinated military operation. "Bro, you're taking the PlayStation but leaving the fancy throw pillows?" he observed while carrying my gaming chair down the stairs. "That's cold." "I respect it, but it's definitely cold." When we got to the bedroom and I started systematically packing my clothes into suitcases and boxes, Tyler spotted the little velvet ring box that I'd been hiding in my sock drawer for months. The ring I'd been planning to surprise Maya with, back when I thought we were building something permanent together. "Oh shit, you were actually going to marry this chick," Tyler said, holding up the box like it was some kind of contaminated evidence. "Dude, you dodged a bullet so hard you basically became Neo from the Matrix." "Just throw it in the box," I muttered, not really wanting to think about the thousands of dollars I'd spent on a ring for someone who was apparently just keeping me around until something better came along. But Tyler was on a roll now, clearly enjoying himself. "Most people just break up and move out. You're over here playing four-dimensional chess with lease agreements and strategic furniture removal. This is like watching a masterclass in how to exit a relationship with style." By Tuesday evening, I was completely moved out of the apartment Maya and I had shared. I was crashing at Tyler's place with most of my belongings safely stored in a storage unit I'd rented across town. It felt surreal to have dismantled 2.5 years of shared life in just a couple of days. But there was also something liberating about taking control of the situation. "So what's the plan now?" Tyler asked, cracking open a beer and settling in like he was about to watch his favorite television show. "You going to start dating her mom just to really mess with her head?" "Shut up, Tyler," I replied, but I couldn't help appreciating his enthusiasm for the chaos that was about to unfold. Maya didn't notice anything was missing until Wednesday night. She had spent Tuesday at her parents' house because her mother Linda apparently needed help with some unspecified tasks, whatever that actually meant. It wasn't until she returned to what she thought was still our shared apartment that she realized half of our belongings had vanished into thin air. That's when my phone started absolutely blowing up with increasingly frantic text messages. Tyler was sitting right next to me on his couch when the first text came through, and he read it over my shoulder before nearly choking on his beer with laughter. "Oh man, this is going to be better than Netflix," he declared with obvious glee. "Where the hell is the TV?" was Maya's opening message. Then, "Did someone break in? Half our stuff is gone." Followed by, "Oh my god, are you kidding me right now? Where the hell is the air fryer?" Tyler, being Tyler, grabbed my phone and sent back, "We left the bed, enjoy." I quickly snatched the phone back and responded with something more mature. "Took my stuff. Check the lease paperwork you signed on Friday." Tyler insisted we order Chinese food so we could watch the meltdown unfold in real time, like it was premium entertainment. My phone rang 6 times in the next hour, and we let every single call go to voicemail while Tyler provided running commentary like a sports announcer. $5 says the next message mentions her feelings," Tyler said, clearly enjoying himself way too much. $10 says she starts with, "How could you do this to me?" When we finally listened to Maya's voicemail, it was absolutely epic. The message started with complete confusion, gradually moved through mounting anger, and ended with the devastating realization that she was now personally responsible for the full rent payment on an apartment she couldn't afford alone. It was like listening to someone go through all 5 stages of grief in the span of a 3-minute voice message. Tyler made me play it twice, declaring it pure poetry right there while he finished his low main. Maya's financial situation was about to become very real, very fast, and the math was both simple and brutal. We had specifically chosen that apartment because splitting one $400 meant we each paid a manageable $700 per month. But Maya's job as a social media manager at some trendy startup paid maybe $38,000 annually. After taxes, health insurance, and her student loan payments, she was looking at barely $2,300 in take-home pay each month. The rent alone would now consume more than half of her entire monthly income. When you added utilities, groceries, her car payment, and all the other unavoidable adult expenses, she was staring down financial stress on a level she had never experienced before in her privileged life. My phone kept buzzing throughout the evening with increasingly desperate messages that showed Maya's emotional progression in real time. First came the predictable anger. "You can't just abandon the lease. This is my home too." Then came the bargaining phase. "Can we talk about this like adults? Maybe you can pay half rent until I find a roommate or something." Finally, reality began to set in. "I can't afford this place alone. You know I can't afford this place alone." But the real entertainment started when Linda got involved in the situation. She called me Thursday evening and I could tell she was absolutely furious before she even started talking. Her voice had that particular edge that meant someone was about to get a lecture they'd never forget. "We need to discuss what you've done to Maya," she said, using the exact tone she might use with a misbehaving teenager she was about to ground for the rest of the semester. Tyler was making dinner in the kitchen when Linda called, but he immediately dropped everything to listen to my side of the conversation. He started making exaggerated hand gestures, mimicking someone complaining to a manager, complete with the classic, "Can I speak to your supervisor?" finger-pointing motion. "I removed my name from our lease," I explained calmly. Maya signed the paperwork agreeing to take over full responsibility. Everything was done legally and properly documented through the property management company. "You're being completely unreasonable," Linda snapped back. "Maya made one innocent comment and you're destroying her life over it. She didn't mean anything by what she said to me. Girls say things they don't mean all the time." There it was. Linda knew exactly what I had overheard during their conversation, and she was actively trying to gaslight me into thinking it didn't matter or shouldn't have consequences. An innocent comment about keeping her options open and waiting for someone better to come along, while her boyfriend was secretly shopping for engagement rings. "If it was so innocent, why didn't you tell her she was wrong?" I asked Linda directly, cutting through her attempts to minimize what had happened. There was a long, telling pause on the other end of the line. Then Linda's true feelings came pouring out in a way that revealed everything I needed to know about this family's values. "Maya is young and smart and beautiful," she said, as if these qualities automatically justified treating people like disposable objects. "She shouldn't have to settle just because you're insecure about her having options." The conversation went rapidly downhill from there. Linda accused me of being vindictive and cruel for leaving Maya financially stranded. She suggested that I was intimidated by Maya's success and looks, which was particularly rich considering Maya made significantly less money than I did, and I had been the one planning to propose. The cognitive dissonance was absolutely stunning. "You're going to regret this," Linda said before hanging up, her voice dripping with the kind of threat that suburban mothers think carries real weight. "Maya will find someone who actually appreciates what he has, and you'll realize what you threw away." Tyler waited exactly 3 seconds after I hung up before launching into his commentary. "Bro, did that woman just threaten you with Maya's dating life? That's like threatening someone with a participation trophy. You'll regret giving up my mediocre daughter who treats you like garbage." That's basically what she just said. I was still processing Linda's incredible phone call when my phone rang again about an hour later. This time, it was Maya's father, Robert, calling, and his voice immediately caught me off guard. "Hey, son," he said, which was particularly surprising given the circumstances. Robert had always called me son from pretty early in our relationship, but hearing it now felt completely different. Like maybe he actually meant it instead of just using it as a casual term. Tyler perked up immediately when he heard Robert's voice through the speaker. He'd always genuinely liked Robert, and they had bonded over football games and dad jokes during various family gatherings over the years. "I heard about what happened," Robert continued with a measured tone. "Linda told me her version of events. Maya told me hers. Now I want to hear yours, because I have a feeling there's more to this story than what I'm getting from the women in my family." So I told him absolutely everything. The conversation I'd overheard between Maya and Linda, the lease situation, and how I'd handled it. Linda's phone call, and her attempts to gaslight me into thinking Maya's words didn't matter. Robert listened without interrupting once, which was honestly more than I could say for the other members of his family. When I finished explaining everything, Robert was quiet for a long moment. I could almost hear him processing the information and probably connecting it to things he'd observed over the years. "I'm disappointed," he said finally, and my heart sank for a moment until he continued. In them, it turned out that Robert had actually been wondering for months why I hadn't proposed to Maya yet. He had been ready to have the traditional, "What are your intentions with my daughter?" conversation with me, because he could clearly see that I was serious about Maya and building toward a future together. Hearing that Maya had been actively keeping her options open while I was shopping for engagement rings, and that Linda had been encouraging this behavior, didn't sit well with him at all. "Linda's always babied Maya," Robert said with a tone of frustration that suggested this was a long-standing issue in their household. "Made her think she's some kind of princess who deserves the world without giving anything back in return. I've been watching you bust your ass for 2.5 years trying to make my daughter happy, and this is how they repay you." Tyler was practically bouncing in his seat, whispering, "Robert gets it!" while making enthusiastic thumbs-up gestures. The relief I felt hearing Robert's words was absolutely incredible. At least one person in Maya's family understood reality and could see the situation for what it actually was, rather than through the distorted lens of Linda's enabling behavior. "Maya's upset about the apartment situation," Robert continued, "but maybe dealing with some real consequences will teach her something about treating people with respect. You did nothing wrong here, and don't let anyone tell you differently." After I hung up with Robert, Tyler was grinning like an absolute idiot. "Dude, you just got dad approval for dumping his daughter. That's next-level respect right there." Robert's probably been waiting years for someone to call Maya on her bullshit behavior. The next few weeks turned into a fascinating case study in watching someone's carefully constructed life fall apart from a safe distance. Maya tried everything she could think of to fix her situation, but nothing seemed to work out the way she expected. Meanwhile, Linda was waging a full-scale public relations campaign to paint me as the villain in this entire story. Tyler made popcorn every single time my phone buzzed with updates from what he had dubbed the Family Drama Network. He'd set up camp on his couch like we were watching a reality show marathon, complete with snacks and running commentary. First, Maya attempted to find a roommate through every possible avenue. She posted on Facebook, Craigslist, and those specialized roommate finder apps. But here's the thing that made her search nearly impossible. Our apartment was specifically set up for a couple, not for random roommates living together. One bedroom was significantly larger and came with the master bathroom, while the second bedroom was barely big enough to fit a full-size bed with any other furniture. Plus, Maya was incredibly picky about who she would even consider living with, and Linda was making the entire process infinitely worse. "Let me get this straight," Tyler said when I explained Maya's roommate troubles to him. "She wants someone to pay $700 to live in what's essentially a glorified closet while Princess Maya keeps the master suite? And her mom's conducting job interviews for potential roommates? That's not finding a roommate, that's hiring domestic help." Linda had started showing up to help interview potential roommates, asking incredibly invasive questions about their jobs, backgrounds, and personal lives. She scared off half of the decent candidates by acting like she was hiring a personal assistant instead of helping Maya find someone to share living expenses with. Maya had a few people come to look at the place, but nobody wanted to pay $700 plus utilities to live in what was essentially a storage room, while Maya got the master suite and her mother conducted random inspections whenever she felt like it. Then came Linda's next brilliant strategy. She started calling mutual friends and family members to explain how poorly I was treating Maya, launching what could only be described as a comprehensive smear campaign. Linda would call up various friends and family members with this elaborate sob story about how I had abandoned Maya and left her financially struggling. Her version of events painted me as some kind of monster who had disappeared without warning, leaving poor innocent Maya to deal with impossible circumstances. "He just disappeared one day and took everything," she'd tell people with dramatic flair. Poor Maya came home to an empty apartment and a massive rent bill she can't afford. It's cruel and vindictive, and someone needs to talk sense into him. Tyler intercepted one of these calls when Linda tried to reach my buddy Nathan through his mother, hoping to get the neighborhood network involved in her campaign. Nathan called Tyler first because he knew we were roommates now, and he wanted to get the real story before making any judgments. Dude, Maya's mom called my mom trying to get the whole neighborhood to turn against you, Nathan told Tyler over the phone. My mom was like, that boy has been nothing but respectful for 2.5 years. What's the real story here? Tyler immediately called me at work, barely able to contain his excitement. Bro, Linda's running a smear campaign and it's backfiring spectacularly. Nathan's mom basically told her to pound sand. Apparently, Linda came off like a complete crazy person. Linda had seriously overplayed her hand with this strategy. People who actually knew me weren't buying her version of events, and her over-the-top reaction made it obvious there was much more to the story than she was telling them. Her desperate attempts to rally support made her look unhinged rather than sympathetic. Meanwhile, Robert was dealing with the fallout at home from Linda's increasingly erratic behavior. He told me later that he'd had to shut Linda down multiple times when she started planning to show up at my workplace to confront me about what I'd done to Maya. Tyler's response when I told him about Linda's workplace ambush plans was immediate and enthusiastic. Please tell me she actually tries it. I want to see security escort a suburban mom off the premises while she's screaming about lease agreements. That would make my entire year. I told her if she wanted to embarrass herself that badly, she could do it without dragging our family name through the mud, Robert explained to me. But I wasn't going to let her harass you at your job over this situation. Maya tried negotiating with the landlord next, begging them to let her break the lease early or find a smaller unit in the same complex. But the property management company wasn't running a charity operation, and they had absolutely no incentive to accommodate her requests. She had signed paperwork taking full responsibility for the lease. I had followed all the proper procedures, and they were holding her to the agreement she'd made. Linda showed up to that meeting too, demanding to speak to a manager and threatening all kinds of legal action. The property manager calmly explained that everything had been done legally and was properly documented. Linda's response was to accuse them of discriminating against a young woman and threatened to report them to various authorities for what she claimed was unfair treatment. Tyler was literally crying with laughter when I told him this story. She tried to Karen, a property management company? Those people deal with crazy tenants for a living. That's like trying to out-crazy a customer service representative. They've seen it all before. By month 2, Maya was seriously considering moving back in with her parents. Linda was actively encouraging this decision, of course, because it meant she could continue controlling Maya's life down to the smallest details. But Robert put his foot down hard on this plan. You made your choice, he told Maya during one of their tense family meetings. You treated a good man like he was disposable. If you move back home, you're going to follow our rules and show some respect for the people who actually care about you. Then something completely unexpected started happening that would change the entire dynamic of this situation. While Maya was dealing with her financial crisis and Linda was plotting my social destruction, Maya's younger sister Jessica reached out to me directly. Jessica was about 22 years old, worked as a graphic designer, and had always been the quieter one in the family. Where Maya was loud, attention-seeking, and dominated every conversation, Jessica was more observant and thoughtful. She'd make these incredibly dry, witty comments during family dinners that were actually pretty funny, but they usually got completely overlooked because Maya demanded to be the center of attention, and Linda treated Jessica like the less important daughter. About 7 weeks after I'd moved out of the apartment, I got a text message from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Jessica, Maya's sister, the message read. Heard about what happened through the Family Drama Network. That was some next-level chess move with the lease thing. Respect. I was genuinely surprised that she even had my phone number, but apparently Maya had given it to her years ago for some family emergency contact situation. What surprised me even more was that she had reached out at all, considering the circumstances and the fact that her family was basically treating me like public enemy number 1. Tyler was on the couch playing video games when I got Jessica's text message. I showed him the message and he immediately paused his game, looking at me with obvious interest. Hold up, Tyler said with a growing grin. The sister? The hot one who barely talks at family dinners but seems way cooler than Maya? Bro, this is about to get very interesting. Your sister's probably not too happy with me right now, I texted back. Not sure how much Jessica actually knew about the family drama that had been unfolding. My sister's learning that actions have consequences, she responded. She's also currently eating cereal for dinner because she spent too much money on a new outfit last week, so the lesson's really sinking in. Mom's having a complete meltdown about it on a daily basis. Tyler read the exchange over my shoulder and immediately declared, Damn, I like her already. She's got that dry sense of humor and she's not buying into the family drama bullshit. We ended up texting back and forth over the next few days, just casual conversation that felt surprisingly natural and easy. But Jessica had this way of cutting through nonsense and acknowledging reality that I found incredibly refreshing after dealing with Maya's constant need for validation and Linda's manipulation tactics. She didn't pretend the situation wasn't messy or try to play peacemaker between me and her family. She just acknowledged what had actually happened without trying to spin it or make excuses for anyone's behavior. Maya always treated you like her personal assistant, she texted me one day with characteristic bluntness. Someone to handle all the boring practical stuff while she focused on more important things like her social media presence. I never understood why you put up with it for so long. Mom encouraged that dynamic too, always telling Maya she deserved to be treated like a princess. We started meeting up occasionally for coffee, and I discovered that Jessica had this way of actually listening that Maya had never possessed. Instead of just waiting for her turn to talk or thinking about how to make the conversation about herself, Jessica would pay genuine attention to what I was saying and respond thoughtfully. Jessica was also genuinely funny in a low-key, sarcastic way that I found way more appealing than Maya's constant need to be the center of attention and create drama wherever she went. Her humor was intelligent and observational rather than attention-seeking. "So, what's your plan now?" she asked during one of our coffee meetings, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Buy a white cat and practice your villain laugh while plotting your next move?" Tyler thought this was absolutely hilarious when I told him about our conversation later. "Most people are scared to joke about this whole situation because they think it's too serious and dramatic," he said. "And she's just casually roasting you for it. That's wife material right there, bro." I wasn't actively looking for anything romantic at this point, honestly. I was still processing the entire Maya situation and working through my trust issues. I wasn't ready to open myself up to the possibility of getting hurt again by someone who might see me as disposable. But Jessica was incredibly easy to be around. She didn't make everything about drama or feelings or where our relationship was heading. She didn't need constant validation or reassurance. We just hung out like normal people having genuine conversations about life, work, interests, and random observations about the world. After a couple of months of casual friendship, I realized that something significant had shifted in how I felt. I found myself genuinely looking forward to seeing Jessica, not just as a distraction from all the Maya-related family drama, but because I actually enjoyed her company as a person. She made me laugh with her dry observations. She remembered random things I had mentioned in passing weeks earlier. Most importantly, she treated me like someone worth listening to and spending time with. Tyler noticed the change in my behavior before I consciously recognized it myself. I was getting ready for another coffee date with Jessica when he decided to call me out on what was happening. "Bro, you're catching feelings for the sister, aren't you?" Tyler said with his typical directness. "We're just friends," I replied, which was technically true at that moment in time. "Right. And I'm just friends with my Xbox," Tyler shot back. "Face it, dude. You're into her, and honestly, that's a good thing. She seems genuinely cool and normal, unlike certain other family members we could mention. Plus," Tyler continued with obvious glee, "imagine Linda's face when she realizes you're dating the daughter she basically ignored for 22 years. That's not why you like Jessica, obviously, but you have to admit the irony is going to be absolutely perfect." "That's not why I started to protest. "I'm not saying that's why you like her," Tyler interrupted. "I'm saying it's going to be hilarious when it happens regardless of your motivations. Sometimes the universe just hands you perfect irony, and you have to appreciate it for what it is." But then Linda found out that Jessica and I had been spending time together, and all hell broke loose in ways that made the previous family drama look like a minor disagreement. The first sign that Linda had discovered our friendship was Maya calling me at 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night. I could hear the hysteria and barely contained rage in her voice before she even started yelling at me. "Are you seriously hanging out with my sister right now?" Maya's voice was shrill and accusatory, like she'd caught me committing some kind of unforgivable betrayal. Tyler was in the kitchen getting a late-night snack when my phone rang, and he could hear Maya's voice clearly through the speaker. He immediately started making frantic abort mission hand signals while trying not to laugh at the obvious desperation in her tone. "We're friends," I said calmly, which was technically accurate at the time, though I was becoming increasingly aware that my feelings for Jessica were developing into something deeper. "Friends!" Maya practically shrieked. "You destroy my entire life and then immediately move on to my sister like we're some kind of game to you? Like you're just working your way through my family for revenge?" Tyler was now silently applauding Maya's meltdown while eating cereal straight from the box, clearly enjoying every moment of this drama unfolding in real time. But Maya's reaction turned out to be absolutely nothing compared to Linda's nuclear-level meltdown when she processed what was happening. She called me the next day and went completely unhinged in a way that revealed just how unbalanced her priorities really were. "How dare you manipulate Jessica into this twisted revenge plot?" Linda screamed into the phone with pure fury. "You're using her to get back at Maya, and I absolutely will not stand for it. This is sick and manipulative behavior." "Nobody's using anybody for anything," I replied as calmly as I could manage. "Jessica is an adult who's perfectly capable of making her own decisions about who she wants to spend time with." "Jessica has always been jealous of Maya," Linda continued, revealing her true feelings about her younger daughter. "She's not smart enough to see that you're just using her as part of your revenge fantasy. When you get bored of your little game, you'll throw her away too, just like you did to Maya." That comment crossed a major line for me. Linda had always obviously favored Maya over Jessica, but hearing her talk about Jessica like she was some desperate, stupid girl who couldn't think for herself was absolutely disgusting. The casual cruelty in her dismissal of her own daughter's intelligence and worth was breathtaking. "Jessica is twice the person Maya is," I said, my own anger finally breaking through. "Maybe if you'd actually paid attention to your younger daughter instead of enabling Maya's princess complex for the past 22 years, you'd know that." Linda's response was to threaten me in the most predictable way possible. She was going to call my job, contact my friends, reach out to my family members, basically launch a comprehensive campaign to destroy my reputation and social connections. She was going to make sure everyone knew what kind of person I really was, and she'd destroy my reputation the same way I had supposedly destroyed Maya's life. "You picked the wrong family to mess with," Linda said, before hanging up, like she was some kind of suburban mafia boss instead of a middle-aged woman having a breakdown because her neglected daughter was getting attention. I immediately called Robert to give him a heads up about Linda's threats and her increasingly unhinged behavior. His response was definitely not what I expected, and it gave me hope that not everyone in this family had completely lost their minds. "I'll handle Linda," Robert said, and there was an edge in his voice that I had never heard before. "And I think it's great that you and Jessica are spending time together. She's a good kid who deserves someone who actually sees her value." Tyler was doing literal victory laps around the living room when I told him about Robert's response. "Robert's about to go full dad mode on Linda," he declared with obvious excitement. "This is going to be absolutely epic. $20 says he shuts down her whole operation before she can make a single threatening phone call." It turns out that Robert had been watching Linda's obvious favoritism toward Maya for years, and he was completely done enabling her destructive behavior. He had witnessed how Linda constantly built Maya up while systematically tearing Jessica down, and seeing a good man recognize Jessica's worth was apparently the final straw for him. Linda's campaign against me and Jessica escalated to levels that would make reality TV producers jealous of the pure drama. She started by trying to turn the extended family against us, calling aunts, uncles, cousins, and anyone else she could think of with her carefully crafted version of events. Tyler had somehow managed to set up an entire information network to track Linda's movements and strategies. His girlfriend knew Maya from college. Nathan's sister worked with one of Maya's friends, and through this web of connections, Tyler had real-time intelligence on everything Linda was attempting. "Bro, Linda called your aunt trying to get her to talk sense into you," Tyler reported one evening, like he was delivering a military briefing. "Your aunt apparently told her that you're a grown man who can date whoever he wants, and maybe Linda should focus on figuring out why both her daughters are having relationship problems instead of blaming everyone else." Linda had conveniently painted herself as the protective mother figure who was trying to save both her daughters from my supposedly evil influence. She claimed I was playing some elaborate long-term game to hurt the entire family, using Jessica as a weapon against Maya in some twisted revenge plot. The major problem with Linda's strategy was that she had seriously underestimated both Robert and Jessica's ability to stand up for themselves. Robert shut Linda down hard during one of their family dinners, and Jessica told me about it later. When I relayed the story to Tyler, he immediately demanded a complete play-by-play with full details. "Enough," Robert had said when Linda started ranting about my supposed manipulation tactics yet again. "You want to know what really happened here? Maya treated that boy like garbage for 2.5 years while he bent over backward trying to make her happy. She told you to your face that she was keeping her options open, and you actively encouraged it." Linda had tried to interrupt with her usual deflection tactics, but Robert wasn't having any of it this time. "You've spent 22 years treating Jessica like she's Maya's consolation prize sister. Robert continued relentlessly. Now a good man sees what you've been too blind to notice, and instead of being happy for her, you're making it all about Maya's feelings. It's pathetic. Maya had apparently started crying and ran to her room like a teenager, while Linda accused Robert of being cruel and unsupportive during their daughter's difficult time. Robert's response was absolutely perfect. I'm supporting the daughter who deserves it, the one who treats people with respect and doesn't think the world owes her everything. Meanwhile, Jessica was dealing with Linda's direct attacks and manipulation attempts on a personal level. Linda would show up at Jessica's apartment unannounced, demanding to know what I had been saying about Maya and whether I was somehow turning her against the family with lies and manipulation. She keeps asking if you've been feeding me lies about Maya, Jessica told me during one of our coffee dates, rolling her eyes at her mother's ridiculous behavior. Like I haven't been watching Maya treat you like hired help for 2.5 years with my own eyes. I don't need anyone to tell me what I've been observing firsthand. Linda's next move was to recruit Maya's entire friend group for what she called an intervention. They showed up at Jessica's workplace to talk sense into her about dating her sister's ex-boyfriend, because apparently that was crossing some kind of sacred family boundary that Linda had invented. But Jessica handled the situation like an absolute boss, and the intervention completely backfired when Maya's friends realized they couldn't actually defend Maya's behavior with any logical arguments. Most of them had watched her take me for granted throughout our entire relationship, and several of them admitted privately that they thought Jessica was actually the better choice. But Linda wasn't finished with her campaign of destruction. She tried to get Robert to forbid our relationship entirely, threatening to leave him if he didn't choose Maya's feelings over Jessica's happiness. This turned out to be her biggest strategic mistake yet. If you want to throw away 27 years of marriage because you can't handle one of our daughters finding genuine happiness, Robert told her with finality, that's your choice to make. But I'm not going to punish Jessica for Maya's mistakes and poor decisions. Tyler's reaction to this development was immediate and intense. Robert chose Jessica over Linda's threats, he said, practically bouncing with excitement. He basically told Linda to pack her bags if she can't handle reality. This man is an absolute legend. I want to buy him a drink and personally shake his hand. Robert started including me and Jessica in family events again, despite Linda's vocal protests and passive-aggressive behavior. Sunday dinners, birthday celebrations, holiday gatherings, we were explicitly welcome, and he made sure everyone knew it was his decision. Tyler actually invited himself to one of these family dinners, claiming he needed to witness the drama firsthand for what he called historical documentation purposes. Robert actually seemed to enjoy Tyler's running commentary on Linda's passive-aggressive behavior throughout the meal. You're still family to me, Robert told me privately during that dinner, pulling me aside while everyone else was having dessert. You were like a son to me for 2.5 years, and that doesn't change because Maya screwed up her relationship. Now you might actually become my son-in-law for real, but with the daughter who has enough sense to appreciate you. The last real conversation I ever had with Maya happened at one of these family dinners that Robert had insisted we attend. Linda had spent the entire meal making passive-aggressive comments about loyalty and family betrayal, creating an atmosphere of tension that everyone could feel. Maya finally cornered me in the kitchen while everyone else was clearing dishes and having dessert. Tyler had strategically positioned himself at the kitchen doorway like some kind of bodyguard, pretending to help clear dishes while obviously eavesdropping on every word of our conversation. I can't believe you're doing this to me, Maya said, tears streaming down her face in what appeared to be genuine distress. You planned this whole thing just to hurt me and get revenge for what happened. Tyler was making wrap-it-up gestures behind Maya's back, clearly enjoying the drama, but also ready to intervene if the situation escalated beyond normal conversation. Your sister didn't steal anything from you, I told Maya, as calmly as I could manage. She just found me where you left me. And honestly, maybe if you'd spent less time looking for someone better and more time appreciating what you actually had, we wouldn't be in this situation right now. I never said I didn't appreciate you, Maya protested, her voice breaking with what seemed like genuine emotion. You said you were waiting for someone better to come along, I replied. Your mom was sitting right there in the room cheering you on and encouraging you to keep your options open. I heard the whole conversation. I didn't mean it like that, she whispered. But we both knew she was lying to herself at this point. Yes, you did. And that's okay, I said, surprising myself with how calm I felt. You had every right to keep your options open and wait for something better. You just didn't have the right to keep me as a backup plan while you did it. Tyler gave me a subtle thumbs up from the doorway, clearly approving of how I was handling the situation without being cruel or vindictive. That was the last real conversation Maya and I ever had. It's been 7 months now, and things with Jessica are solid and genuine in a way that my relationship with Maya never was. We're not perfect. No relationship ever is. But what we have feels real and honest in a way I didn't even realize I was missing before. We moved slowly into a romantic relationship, partly because of all the family drama swirling around us, and partly because I needed time to trust my own judgment again, after being so completely wrong about Maya's feelings and intentions. Tyler takes full credit for our relationship's success naturally. Obviously, I've been the third wheel, therapist, moving company, and security detail for this whole operation, he declares regularly. You two owe me a wedding invitation and an open bar at the reception. Maya finally gave up on the apartment after struggling with the financial pressure for 6 months. She couldn't handle the stress of paying rent that consumed more than half her income, so she moved back in with her parents. She tried to get me to pay some kind of penalty for leaving her stranded, but legally she had absolutely no case. She had signed the paperwork, I had followed all the proper procedures, and that was the end of the story. The ironic part is that moving back home put Maya right back under Linda's complete control, which she quickly learned to hate with a passion. Linda treated her like a teenager again, complete with curfews, invasive questions about where she was going and who she was seeing, and constant criticism of her spending habits. The independence that Maya had taken for granted during our relationship was completely gone. She's absolutely miserable, Robert told me during one of our fishing trips that had become a regular bonding activity. Linda's driving her crazy with the helicopter parenting, but Maya can't afford to move out on her own. Sometimes consequences are the best teachers. Jessica and Maya's relationship is slowly improving through careful conversations and gradual healing, but it took some brutally honest discussions about family dynamics and years of built-up resentment. Linda, on the other hand, is still bitter and resentful about the entire situation. She tolerates me at family events because Robert made it crystal clear that her alternative was spending holidays completely alone. But she makes her displeasure known through passive-aggressive comments and dramatic sighs whenever Jessica and I are around. Tyler has made it his personal mission to annoy Linda at every single family gathering we attend. He shows up with flowers for Jessica, compliments Robert's cooking with genuine enthusiasm, and completely ignores Linda's existence like she's not even in the room. It's petty and beautiful, I tell him regularly, though I have to admit watching Linda's frustrated reactions is pretty entertaining. Some people never learn, Jessica says about her mother with a mixture of sadness and resignation. She's more upset about being wrong than she is about almost losing both her daughters over her toxic behavior. But the absolute best part of this entire saga came about 7 months after everything went down. Maya started dating this guy named Kevin, who seemed absolutely perfect on paper. He had a good job, drove a nice car, took her to expensive restaurants, and treated her like the princess Linda had always told her she deserved to be. Linda loved Kevin immediately and kept making pointed comments about how this was the kind of man Maya truly deserved, while shooting meaningful looks in my direction during family gatherings. Kevin lasted exactly 3 months before he got completely tired of Maya's high-maintenance attitude and Linda's constant interference in their relationship. He broke up with her via text message and started dating one of Maya's coworkers within a week of their breakup. The damage to Maya's ego was absolutely devastating. Here was the someone better she had been waiting for, the upgrade she thought she deserved, and he had treated her like she was completely disposable. Meanwhile, I was building something real and lasting with Jessica, with Robert's full support and approval. Jessica, being the genuinely better person that she is, actually tried to comfort her sister instead of saying, "I told you so." But privately, she admitted that the vindication felt pretty satisfying after years of being treated like the inferior sister. We moved in together last month, finding a nice place that we actually chose together instead of settling for what we could afford separately. There was no drama, no big declarations, just a practical decision that felt completely right for both of us. Robert helped us move, which drove Linda absolutely insane with jealousy and resentment. Tyler organized the entire moving process like a military operation, showing up with a truck, a cooler full of energy drinks, and a playlist he had titled Moving Day Victory Lap. He also brought a sign that said Upgrade Complete and hung it prominently in our new living room, which I thought was a bit much, but Jessica found hilarious. "You're choosing them over your own daughter," Linda accused Robert during the moving process. I'm choosing the couple that's actually happy and stable over the daughter who's still looking for someone to blame for her problems, Robert replied, without hesitation. Tyler was secretly recording this conversation on his phone for what he called posterity, and nearly gave himself away trying not to laugh out loud. Maya heard about our move through the family grapevine and sent me one final text message. "Hope you're happy." I responded with complete honesty. I am, actually, and I genuinely mean that. Not because I'm trying to prove anything to anyone or get some kind of revenge on Maya, or whatever Linda thinks is motivating my choices. I'm happy because I found someone who chose me without hesitation. Someone who saw my worth without needing to compare it to other available options in the dating market. The engagement ring I had been secretly saving for during my relationship with Maya. I returned it months ago and got my money back. But I've started looking at rings again, this time for someone who won't need to think twice when I ask the question. Someone who won't need to keep her options open while deciding whether I'm good enough. Robert has already given me his blessing for a future proposal, and he seems genuinely more excited about the prospect of me officially joining his family than Linda ever was during the entire time I dated Maya. Tyler has already started planning his best man speech, and apparently it involves a PowerPoint presentation about how to dodge bullets and find upgrades, complete with before and after photos of my life transformation. I really hope he's joking about this. But knowing Tyler's sense of humor, he's probably completely serious. Maya kept her doors open, waiting for someone better to walk through them and sweep her off her feet. But it turns out that someone better was already in the building. She just wasn't looking in the right direction because she was too busy scanning the horizon for theoretical upgrades. And while she was busy window shopping for her perfect future, she lost the guy who was actually ready for marriage, commitment, and building a real life together. Linda is still completely convinced that I'm some kind of master manipulator who orchestrated this entire situation to hurt Maya and get revenge on their family. The truth is much simpler and less dramatic than her conspiracy theories. I just stopped accepting less than I was worth. I stopped being grateful for crumbs when I deserved the whole meal. I stopped pretending that being someone's backup plan was the same thing as being loved. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't some elaborate scheme or calculated plot. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people deal with the natural consequences of their own choices while you build something better with someone who actually wants to be there. The whole situation taught me that when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them the first time. Maya showed me that I was disposable, replaceable, and not worth her full commitment. Linda showed me that she would always prioritize Maya's feelings over basic decency and fairness. But Jessica showed me what it feels like to be chosen, appreciated, and valued for who I actually am rather than what I can provide, or how I measure up to imaginary alternatives. My face when I realized I dodged the biggest bullet of my life and found someone who actually appreciates me. Feels good, man. Really, really good.